We're in the land down under. And with apologies to Jeremy Clarkson, some say that Red Bull have some incredible wizardry in their car. Some say that Red Bull will win every single race this season. All I know is, I haven't got a clue. Let's go racing. It's a very good evening from me, Sasha Martinengo. Welcome to the LGR F1 Show. Let's go racing. More on that a little bit later from our beautiful studio here at Suzuki Menlyn Mall Shopping Centre. If you're in the area, always pop in and come in and say hello to everybody here at Suzuki. Let's go back to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The podium was exactly the same as Bahrain, with the exception, of course, that Max Verstappen didn't win this race. Sergio Perez did, but Max got the fastest lap. And Fernando Alonso was there as well, which was terrific. Let's talk a little bit about Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen. Now, I don't know about you, but you could feel the tension after the race. It didn't seem as though Jos Verstappen was really that excited for Checo Perez. We all know that Max had his issues and had to fight through the field, and he wasn't going to catch Perez. Now, I just go, come on, you know, you're still a team. You don't have to be that ugly towards each other. And I just found that a bit bad sportsman, if I look at things. The one thing that Red Bull do have at the moment is they are managing to give both of their drivers a phenomenon. It's very rare in Formula One that the car suits both drivers. So Max wants a car that's pointy, Sergio wants a car that's got a little bit more rear end, and all of a sudden they're managing to find this brilliant geometry for both of them. It is a rare phenomenon. Now, Christian Horner has come out and says his driver lineup is mature. And I look at this and I go, hold on a second. After the end of the Saudi Grand Prix, I'm trying to figure out who is the one that is mature. Okay, look at that. It won't compromise Red Bull's success in 2023. Jos Verstappen has got to understand that, well, his son can't win everything. Well, maybe he can, but he can't now because Sergio's already won. So when it comes to maturity, I wonder if it's Verstappen Senior or Junior that needs to mature themselves. As always, please get in touch with me via Facebook, on our YouTube, and of course on our WhatsApp line. There it is. It is on your screen, 073-879-4498. Get in touch, and of course we'll go through comments during the course of the show. The billion-dollar question in Formula One right now is, what do Red Bull have that the other teams don't? Many have got different theories about this. One of the most interesting, and I think most pertinent at the moment, comes from Alex Wurz, who, of course, for many years is the Grand Prix Drivers Association president, also raced in Formula One for many, many years as well. He's come out and says that the Red Bull can run lower to the ground as opposed to the other cars. Other pundits say that the aerodynamic efficiency is superior. Others say that the DRS system works better than everybody else's. And others say that in Saudi Arabia, Red Bull just had the perfect rear wing. But the smart money is all on about the Honda MG UK system. Now, MG UK stands for motor generator unit kinetic. And this is the energy that is produced from the braking system of the car. Then it is turned into energy, and then it is filtered back into the operation of the ICE. Now, does that make such a big difference? Smart Money says it is. The Honda boss, before the season even started, said, we depend, and I'm going to read this, we deepened our understanding of our power unit to further optimize the control and energy management. He went on to say, we have also matured ourselves in the electrification technologies where we had a clear advantage last year, especially in the MG UK department. Is that the answer? Well, I think it has got more to do with the porpoising issue from last season. And as we know, after the Belgian Grand Prix last year, the FIA came out and said the cars have to run at a certain height because of the dangers of this porpoising. And for those who may be new to Formula One, last year the cars were bouncing around excessively and it created a lot of strain on the drivers. However, how can Red Bull have sorted out this porpoising issue and maintained a lower ride height compared to what Alex Wurz is saying, and yet the other teams haven't been able to do it? Before we get too excited, we have to realize that most of the teams are coming with major upgrades in about 3 races' time. So we've got Australia, we've got Miami, and we've got, I can't remember, one other, Azerbaijan, to wait. And thereafterwards, when Imola comes, hopefully all of the teams are going to come with brand new updates to their cars. But something that is rather interesting that came out, and I picked up on it yesterday, is the TD39. Okay, and you might be going, what is the TD39? Well, we'll put it up on the screen. And before we get too excited, the FIA is no longer applying TD39, which is the aerodynamic oscillation metric to limit porpoising in Formula One cars. Now, I know this is all very technical, but this was all about Belgium last year, where raising the ride height of the car eliminated the porpoising. And from there was a metric that the FIA said, this is what you have to do as a minimum, otherwise you will be disqualified. Now, if you read all of the gump that is on the right-hand side, where it says, all of the cars now are allowed to lower their cars and get, hopefully on par with Red Bull, the only caveat we have there is this has been implemented since the first Grand Prix of the season, and nobody seems to have been able to find the golden chalice that Red Bull seem to have. So, whether it's the DRS system, the MG UK, the lower ride height, or perfect rear wing, we don't really know. And it seems as though we are going to have to follow Red Bull until probably the likes of Imola before maybe we get some more competition. But, as I always say in Formula One, and to quote the wonderful Murray Walker, anything can and usually does happen in Formula One. Coming up, I've got some off-track news for you. Welcome back. It is the LGR F1 show. Lots of comments coming in, people hypothesizing as to what Red Bull have and what they don't have. I'll try and go through a little, some of them a little bit later. Otherwise, I will reply to them when I have finished the show. But some other news that has been happening off the track, per se. If you don't recall, Nelson Piquet, and I think it's about 18 months ago, had some very unsavory comments to say about Lewis Hamilton, and that was after the after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2021. I'll tell you straight, and for those who know me for many, many years, I've never been a Nelson Piquet fan, and well, Nelson, you're in trouble to the point of $950,000. Okay, work that out. In our South African money, it's about 20 billion rand. Yeah, but it's a lot of money. But Nelson Piquet has been fined, and I'm sure he'll appeal it. But that is a really, really big fine. So be careful what you say on social media about people. Somebody might be watching and take you to task on that as well. Other interesting news, Porsche, of course. Earlier and before the season started, there was a lot of rumblings that Porsche were going to come into Formula One. They were looking to buy a stake of Red Bull. That fell into nothing. Then they went and courted the likes of McLaren, and McLaren have also said, no, we're not interested in selling any part of it. Porsche has now decided, that's it, we are not entering Formula One in 2026, but they haven't closed the door 100%. So there could be chances that Porsche could come in. I always sit there and say there are teams that are available to be purchased. If you look at the likes of AlphaTauri, Red Bull, do they want to have two teams? And of course Williams. Watch out for Williams as well. The Formula One boss, Stefano Domenicali, who of course at one stage was the boss at Ferrari, went to Lamborghini as well. Incredibly well-respected man and a wonderful man as well. He was at the opening round of the MotoGP last weekend in Portimao, which I must say was spectacular. Wonderful racing, but some crazy riding from some of the guys. Marc Marquez, wow, that was a big, big crash. Anyway, Domenicali was at Portimao. And of course, people want to talk to him and they want to know what the future of Formula One is, you know, under Liberty, how Liberty have changed everything. He was asked the question about Friday free practices. And Domenicali sat there and said, you know what, I don't mind if we get rid of free practice 1 and free practice 2 on a Friday. He said, I know it's very nice for the engineers to organize setup. He says, but for the fans, it's not so great. I go, whoa, 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 hold on, Mr. Domenicali, with the greatest respect. I know myself and many, many other Formula One fans, my age and younger, and some of them a lot younger, they cannot wait for FP1 on a Friday. If you read everything that what Domenicali said, is they are looking at ways to make it a little bit more engaging and maybe a little bit more exciting without taking away anything from the DNA of Formula One and also the importance of free practice sessions in Formula One for the engineers and of course for the drivers as well. So they might be looking at maybe point systems, the fact that free practice 1, they all have to use one specific compound of tire, something in the future. But all of that is on the table. I would be extremely disappointed and worried if all of a sudden we take away free practice sessions in Formula One. I was thinking about it. Imagine Novak Djokovic finishes a tournament and now everybody says to him, okay, Novak, sorry, there we go. You cannot play now for 10 days until the next tournament is on. And when you arrive at the tournament, you walk straight onto the court and you start serving. Think about it. It's like Formula One. You can't just do things like that. But Domenicali is a very, very clever man, and I'm sure he will sit and work out together with his team and figure out a way to maybe perhaps make free practice sessions a little bit more exciting. Also off track, Audi and Sauber. Of course, Audi will show their Formula One project a little bit later on this year. They are going to highlight their car in Shanghai, or their Formula One project. And of course, in 2026, Audi will become, Sauber will become Audi, or it'll be Saudi Alba. We don't know exactly what the deal is there. Otherwise, it might become Audi Formula One and completely buy out the Sauber organization. All right, coming up in a short while, we look at AlphaTauri, Alpine, Ferrari, Williams, and Mercedes. Welcome back to the show. Of course, this weekend it is the Australian Grand Prix, and we'll get to that a little bit later. And something about Let's Go Racing, which is Well, made me smile in a way. But first, let's look at some of the teams and some of the things that have been happening. We only had 2 races so far this year, and there's been a lot of criticism coming out, whether it be drivers, whether it be team bosses, purely out of frustration because Red Bull are doing so well. One of the teams that has come out and also has been team principals that has been very vocal, is one of the disciples of Formula One, and that is, of course, Franz Tost from AlphaTauri. Now, AlphaTauri, of course, is the baby team to Red Bull, but they are completely autonomous. They were completely on their own. They were the original Minardi team all the way back there. But Franz Tost has come out and said he does not trust his engineers anymore. Now, that is what you call a proper slap across the wrists or across the face. The problem is that Franz Tost puts all of his belief into his engineers. His engineers sit there and say, okay, this is what the wind tunnel is testing, this is what the aerodynamics are showing, this is what the tire degradation is showing, this is what we believe the power is showing, and all of a sudden they get out into the Grand Prix, and AlphaTauri are really, really struggling. Does this create disharmony? Of course it is. Imagine being one of those engineers who's been working 24/7 to try and get this car right, and all of a sudden it's not working so perfectly. So, yes, manners maybe is something that Formula One needs to learn. Other teams that, of course, have also been very vocal have been Mercedes, both Lewis and George, and I'll get to that in a short while. But let's move on to the Alpine team. And I must say, after last year's season, I expected more after the first 2 races from Alpine. They've got a terrific driver lineup in Pierre Gasly and in and Esteban Ocon. And I do hope that they have a very aggressive development process going forward, because this is a team, honestly, this is backed by Renault. And Renault have a beautiful history in Formula One. They really need to be fighting with the likes of Mercedes, with Red Bull, and with Ferrari. So Alpine really have a bit of a hill to climb, but I really hope that they manage to get a little bit further. But there is one little issue that Alpine has at the moment, and that is Pierre Gasly and his penalty points. Now, Pierre Gasly is sitting at the moment on 10 penalty points. In Formula One rules, if you acquire 12 penalty points, you have to take a 1-race ban. And Otmar Schnaffhauer, the boss of Alpine, sat with everybody and asked a forum and said, listen, you know what, these points that Pierre has got, I understand for reckless driving or creating collisions, yes, you get points. But he's had 1 or 2 points that have been given to him for driving outside track limits. And you consider it and you go, really, is that so much of an offense to get such a severe penalty? If I have changed it, but they are not going in retrospect to look at the points that you have and say, oh, by the way, instead of 10, you're only going to have 7 now. So Gasly is sitting on 10 points out of 12 at the moment, and his expiry is only in May, towards the end of May. So Pierre Gasly has got 5 races until then, and he's got to make sure that he keeps his nose clean. Otherwise, he could well miss a race. And because of missing a race, that's where Alpine are so concerned, is all of a sudden the potential of scoring points. So we're going to watch that one very carefully. What a start to the season by Aston Martin, and specifically Fernando Alonso. We know that Lance Stroll is still suffering from an injury. I think he did exceptionally well in Bahrain, and then he had a mechanical failure in Saudi Arabia. But Alonso has put himself onto 2 podiums already in a very, very competitive car. It's come out and said that Jeddah confirms the competitive nature of the Aston Martin car. Now, there are a lot of people at the moment, and even the Red Bull drivers jested and said, ah, look, there we go, we've got 3 Red Bull cars on the podium. Let's just reflect and look at that Aston Martin car. Yes, the side pods look very, very much or very similar to Red Bull. The whole front of the car, by the way, is completely different to Red Bull. Red Bull uses a pull rod system in the front for their front suspension. Aston Martin uses a push rod system at the front of their car. So that geometry is so completely different. Red Bull uses a Red Bull Honda engine in the back of their car. Aston Martin uses a Mercedes engine in the back of their car, Mercedes power unit. Also, the Mercedes power unit is incredibly compact, specifically designed for the Mercedes car. So Aston Martin have to work around all of those parameters. The rear suspension, the braking system, the gearbox is all Mercedes. So I think we should all just step back a little bit and say, well done, Aston Martin, for whatever you've done so far and in the off-season to produce a car that at the moment, one has to say, is clearly the second best on the grid. And well done to all of their designers. I really hope that they can continue this way going forward and that they do have a lot of developments coming as well. Ferrari. What is going on at Ferrari? Is it all doom and gloom, as a lot of people are saying? No, it's not. As mentioned earlier, major updates are expected at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Italy, and Ferrari will fight as hard and as they always do to improve. It is part of their DNA. In Jeddah, their one-lap pace was excellent, and we saw that even though poor Charles Leclerc had to take the 10-lap grid penalty. But their one-lap pace was very, very decent. It all comes down to their race pace, and this is where they are falling behind. And it's something that they inherited from last year's car as well. Don't forget, 9 pole positions for Charles Leclerc. He couldn't convert all of them because they have this issue, and it is various different issues. They cannot extract the best of the car in various conditions, and that goes down to a lot of tire degradation, perhaps the height of the car, it's various complications that Ferrari have. They fully understand what the problem is now they've got to just try and find the solutions. But in Italy at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, they're coming with a new floor, they're coming with a whole lot of new elements to the car as well, which will hopefully assist and find solutions to the issues that they have right now. The one big problem Frédéric Vasseur has at Ferrari is ensuring that a driver like Charles Leclerc is happy. Otherwise, of course, he's definitely on the radar of every other team out there as well. He's an exceptional racing driver, brilliant over one lap, and brilliant with his racecraft as well. He just needs a much better car than what Ferrari are giving him at present. Moving on to our next team, McLaren. We are all aware of the issues that McLaren have at present, but they are McLaren, and they will find solutions. It might take a little bit longer than we all expect. But Andrea Stella, who is the chief at McLaren right now, speaks wisely when he says no one should blame Red Bull for their perfection in Formula One so far this season. It's up to the other teams to be able to find solutions and in order to catch Red Bull. Where it is a little bit different to 2014, where there were massive engine restrictions, and that's why we saw this huge domination of Mercedes-Benz. These regulations don't really hinder the power output of the car. This all comes down now to very clever aerodynamics, very clever engineering, very clever setup design. So there's no reason why the other teams can't find solutions to their issues and actually catch Red Bull. So I agree with Andrea Stella saying, don't blame anybody. Red Bull are doing a brilliant job. All of the other teams have to challenge them. Williams. Now, speaking of another team with years and years of experience, Williams seem to be alive again. I spoke about in our last show that James Vowles seems to be breathing this wonderful energy within the organization. And somewhere along the line, Williams is on the radar. And it's wonderful to see. They have got so much history. They deserve to be there as well. And I'm just, James Vowles maybe didn't have anything in the preparation of the 2023 car. But since his arrival, I think he's brought in a lot of elements where Williams as an organization were lacking, and all of a sudden people seem to be a lot more motivated. Alex Albon is loving his new car. He's come out and said he's described the car as the best it's felt since joining Williams. And I think that's got a lot to do with James Vowles as well. I think also just coming in with all of those years of experience at Mercedes, that winning kind of culture, bringing it in and motivating people like Alex Albon, I think just gives everybody just a little bit of a lift. And I think what is happening there is wonderful. And I really, really hope that we do see a much stronger Williams as the season progresses as well. From the positive to the negative. And the negativity emanating from Mercedes is surprising and very unlike Mercedes. George Russell, Toto Wolff, Lewis Hamilton have all been critical of the car that they are driving this year. They've been critical of the engineers. Lewis Hamilton has even gone as far to say that he spoke to the engineers and the engineers didn't listen to him. George Russell has come out, and I think this is a little bit of psychological warfare between the two, saying, no, they did listen to Lewis Hamilton. Perhaps they did listen, but somewhere along the line, they haven't got it right yet. But don't forget, in Saudi Arabia, had Alonso not got the penalty, George Russell was going to be on the podium. So Mercedes are actually not that far behind the likes of Red Bull. I think, in my opinion, I think Merc are just a touch better than Aston Martin at the moment, and Ferrari I think are lagging behind both Aston Martin as well as Mercedes. Merc know what has to be done, and they will achieve it, and they will achieve plenty this season as well. Russell says Melbourne, likely a similar story to Jeddah for Mercedes. It just sounds deflated, as opposed to saying, you know what, let's go out there and try our best. And I really don't like the just conversation that's coming out of the mouths of Mercedes right now. But I have to say, it is always nice to hear somebody being honest and transparent. That is always refreshing. They know what their problems are. But the thing is, they're stuck with what they have at the moment, and they've got to go out there and do their best. So there we go. That's looking at the teams. Coming up next, we start looking at the Australian Grand Prix that takes place this weekend. Yeah, welcome back. Some brilliant deals from Penta Suzuki, so go and check them out as well. This weekend, we go down to Australia. They have extended their contract for many, many years to come, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place. Albert Park in Melbourne, half a track, half a street circuit. Magic, magic place to go racing. Before we talk about that, two quick ones. The first one, Fernando Alonso. The FIA stewards have got to understand consistency, and we've been saying it, I don't know, for the last 20 years. We need consistency when it comes to decisions that are made. Fernando Alonso got third position, went on the podium, got the champagne, got the trophy. Afterwards gets told, terribly sorry, you have a 10-second penalty. All of a sudden, George Russell gets handed the trophy. So let's just go back to the Bahrain Grand Prix. Esteban Ocon got a 5-second penalty for being out of his pit box or his starting grid incorrectly. Gets a 5-second penalty. He goes into the pits, serves his 5-second penalty, but when he serves that 5-second penalty, one of the mechanics touches the car, which is an infringement. Because of that, the stewards have a look at it and say, okay, Esteban, now you got another 10-second penalty. Nothing different to what happened to Fernando Alonso. The difference is in Bahrain, the stewards came out and said, Ocon, during the course of the race, Ocon, you have another 10-second penalty. Thereafterwards, he went in, he was caught speeding in the pit lane, he landed up with 45 seconds of penalty. Let's go to Saudi Arabia. Fernando Alonso lines up in his start position, slightly off. He gets given a 5-second penalty. Goes into the pits, they do the 5-second penalty. During that, somebody touches the car, infringement. Okay. They wait until the end of the Grand Prix and then they give the 10-second penalty. That is not fair. Had they given the 10-second penalty during the course of the race with 15 laps to go, Alonso might well have been able to extend his lead over George Russell to 10 seconds. So I think the stewards got that horribly wrong, and I'm glad that the correct decision was taken to reinstate Fernando Alonso as third place. Besides the Alonso blunder, for the life of me, I cannot understand why a safety car was needed in Saudi Arabia. I'm going to bring a picture, here we go, of Lance Stroll in his Aston Martin. Unfortunately, the car just sort of didn't work, and he managed to get the car into that position. Why was a safety car needed? The only reason I can think of is that perhaps the stewards and Formula One decided, you know, if we get a safety car now, the gap between Red Bull and the rest of the field won't be as significant, won't look as bad. Anyway, that's just a little bit of cynicism. You know, there was no reason why a safety car was needed in that incident. This weekend, it is a double home Grand Prix for two drivers, Valtteri Bottas and Oscar Piastri. And you're going, Bottas? But he's Finnish. Yes, we know he is. He is Finnish. However, his girlfriend is Australian. They spend a lot of time in Australia. And, of course, he's wearing a mullet, very much like Cameron Smith, the golfer. So, Valtteri Bottas has this beautiful new helmet to cover his mullet. And he says that this is very much like a home race for him. But it is going to be a huge weekend for the super talent, Oscar Piastri. We know that he's in McLaren. The car's not going so great, but he drove a brilliant race in Saudi Arabia. And watch out for this kid. He's moving into the mold and stepping into the footsteps of Danny Ricciardo. He's a super talented driver. He may not have the exuberance and personality of Danny Ricciardo, but he definitely has the talent. It's going to be a special race for him, and I really, really hope that Oscar Piastri and McLaren have a really, really fantastic weekend. He's a great, great talent for the future. And what craziness is this? Have a look at this. Welcome back, Marshals. Let's go racing. I thought we're Let's Go Racing, Fritz. Hey? We're Let's Go Racing. Anyway, I'm very, very glad and humbled to see that people are using the Let's Go Racing. Here we go. Look, there we go. Let's Go Racing. We've had this for a lot longer than them. Anyway, lovely cap. Where did you get this? I like this. Okay, I'm going to put it on my knee. Anyway, just a little bit of fun, but you know, it's just great. Let's Go Racing is out there. We are the Let's Go Racing show as well. This weekend, of course, it is Albert Park. Let's have a look what's happening in terms of tires. Pirelli, the tire suppliers. We've got the hard compound, the medium and the soft compound. They are the second in the range. So I expect to see a lot of soft and medium running this weekend. All depends on the weather. Speaking of which, on Friday, tomorrow, they are expecting rain, okay? But on Saturday, they say partly cloudy to warmish conditions, and it seems like autumn is hitting the southern hemisphere in quite a way, considering what we've had recently. So Saturday and Sunday, I think, is going to be dry, expecting a dry kind of race. Everyone will want to ensure that they have a decent and trouble-free weekend. Rain on Friday, nothing for the weekend. The circuit just a magnificent racetrack. Lots of overtaking opportunities. Watch out for the chicane, though. Vettel did it once and got penalized, so watch out for it. We got the DRS zones in Zone 1 and Zone 2. It's a fabulous track. The drivers love driving on it, and there are some great opportunities as well. And when can you watch? It's one of those early starts, but honestly, it's not too bad if you think about it. First free practice is pretty early. Okay, the practice sessions are a little bit early, and then of course during the course of the weekend we've got qualifying, practice 3. Qualifying is at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, and then of course the race will be at 7 a.m. on the 2nd of April, live on whichever channel or on Formula One TV as well. So there we go. That is a look at this weekend. How do I see it going? Well, I think it is going to be tough to beat Red Bull. But, you know, if Alonso has another great qualifying, or the Ferraris have a great qualifying, we might see a little bit of a train and block one or two of the Red Bulls. But more than likely, the fight is going to be between Perez and Verstappen. And I don't think they're going to throw team orders just yet. I'd love to see a fight between Perez and Verstappen. And then, of course, Alonso, the Mercs, and hopefully the Ferraris up there as well. Either way, I think it is going to be a marvelous and brilliant Grand Prix weekend. Thanks for all of your comments. I will go through them. I will answer them as well. Until we meet the next time, enjoy the Australian Grand Prix. Let's go racing.